Greetings, GPS baseball family. Dan Griesbaum Jr. here with Dan Griesbaum Sr. talking about the eventual Hall of Famers that we have for Grosse Pointe South baseball. Our youngest member of the inaugural class, Cam Gibson, class of 2013. We're going to chat about him a little bit, and certainly somebody with a lot of tools and one of the great overall athletes to come through Grosse Pointe.
No doubt, no doubt. In this class, we wanted to first of all honor the four players who have achieved the most in terms of how far they went in the game. And those four were Chris Getz, Carmen Benedetti, who will be inducted next year, Cam Gibson, and Adam Abraham, along with our first four All-Staters from back in the 80s. And Cam, what a lot of people may not know is he was an excellent all-around athlete, a terrific hockey player. In fact, Cam played very, very high-level hockey, didn't really get a lot of time to work on his baseball skills because he was playing so much hockey. Then decided that he wanted to go the baseball route, and it was just phenomenal how quickly he took off. He just took off like crazy. And long story short, ended up being first team All-State his junior and senior year. And then, of course, got the scholarship to Michigan State.
So you certainly alluded to it there. Cam, as a freshman in high school, certainly as a coach, you hear that he's coming. It's Kirk Gibson's son, obviously a great Major League Baseball player, a former MVP and a longtime Tiger. You figure there's some good genetics there and certainly some abilities. But as far as being a polished baseball player, he didn't really have it yet as a freshman.
No, not yet. Again, and I think the main reason for that was he was playing such high-level hockey, and it took so much of his time.
Seemed like we started to see it a little bit toward the end of his sophomore year, but still not on the varsity, really.
Right,
right. And then all of a sudden, as a junior on the varsity, that's when it all seemed to come together.
Exactly. He, as I said, he just took off so quickly. And just like watching his father, it was just a pleasure to see him run the bases. The tweener was just a really something to behold, because watching him go around the bases, it certainly took you back to when you watched his father run the bases as well.
I've always contended, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but not necessarily in a straight line so much, but watching Cam get around the bases was the best that I ever saw.
I think so. I think so. Again, the body itself and the athleticism and the quickness and the intensity also. I mean, he was certainly an intense competitor as well. You just love to see him get on base and as I said, hit that tweener, because it was going to be a pleasure watching him run the bases, no doubt.
Just pausing for a second and, thinking about Cam's dad and also just about the 1980s Tigers in general. It seems like Grosse Pointe South baseball has quite a legacy with those 1980s Tigers. Probably, I think you could say more than any other high school does. Do you remember some of those relationships with the 1980s Tigers and how they related to South baseball?
Yeah, well, we had in 87, 88, Derek Evans, Daryl's
son of Daryl.
Yeah. No doubt.
And what do you remember about Daryl during that time? Obviously, these guys during the time, they're playing Major League Baseball, so you probably don't see them a lot.
No, you don't, because we're playing obviously at the same time they are, or we're home, they're away, that kind of thing. So you don't really, unfortunately, they didn't get to see them play as much as they would have liked to, I'm sure.
Obviously, probably the guy most prominent with Grosse Pointe South baseball, perhaps, was Dave Bergman.
No doubt. Troy, as you know, played for North. Excellent ball player. Also went on to Michigan State. And that era, Bergman, Evans, Gibson, so on, certainly was a huge part of Grosse Pointe baseball, not just South, but
Dan Petrie lived in Grosse Pointe for
exactly.
a period of time.
Dan Petrie.
I recall him throwing in the old field room there at South on occasion.
Yeah,
and of course
in the park.
Of course, the funny part of Petrie is that you bore a similar physical resemblance, especially in the 80s, and around Grosse Pointe occasionally got confused.
Right. people would confuse me for him somehow. I don't know. He was much taller,
He's taller, certainly.
better looking. I don't know what the issue was, but a lot of people thought we looked alike. So whenever I see him, we kind of joke about it. It really was quite comical.
Dave Rosemont, also a Grosse Pointer,
Yes,
and brother-in-law with Kirk Gibson.
Right.
But specifically as it came to the late great Dave Bergman, can you talk about briefly maybe his legacy with Grosse Pointe Redbirds?
Well, he started the Redbird organization when Troy was 14, I believe, 14, 15. And it still exists to this day. Dave was tremendous at teaching kids how to play the game the correct way and how to handle themselves on the field. Started our showcase, helped us start the showcase along with Tony Braun and Dick Swarthout from our South program and Dugout Club and so on. And we ran that showcase for many, many years. It was the only one around. And Dave Bergman helped start that. And his presence at the event just lended so much credibility to the Grosse Pointe Showcase.
Did you ever have any concern about players having fathers that achieved on such a high level, and maybe what their reaction might be to things in high school baseball?
Well, I had no concern about any pressure from them. I felt more concerned about their sons having to live up to the pressure of their fathers and so on.
Perhaps especially Cam, considering the physical resemblance, the similar type of player.
Exactly. And, I'm sure it was more pressure on them than me or anybody else in terms of having sons of very well-known baseball people in your community.
And I think it's correct to say that, when it comes to those 80s Tigers, they really were nothing but supportive, ultimately.
Exactly. They were very supportive.
Which, I think anyone my age who grew up idolizing those guys can certainly appreciate how they, the class that they had in their communities and the things that they did for others.
And also Mr. Illich. Mr. Illich was a huge supporter of South baseball, high school baseball in general. He attended one of our games against CC, along with my late brother-in-law, Gary Vito, who worked for him. And Mr. Illich enabled us to have our high school all-star game at First Tiger Stadium. Then we had that moved over to Comerica Park. We have our Coaches Hall of Fame display at Comerica Park. And again, that's all because of Mr. Illich.
Getting back to Cam and his teams of the early 2010-ish decade there. We had a little bit of a lull between or we should say Final Four appearances. During that time, never had the ultimate postseason success during that time, but certainly some very talented teams in there. What do you remember?
No doubt. Again, people don't realize how tough it is to get there, to get to the Final Four in East Lansing and so on. It's very tough. We have some very good teams around here. We've had 8 Final Four appearances. North has had 5. We've got to go through North all the time. We've had to play Brother Rice, CC, so many good teams. U of D had some very good teams in 2010, 2011, 2012. There have been some very difficult teams that we've had to get by, and people don't realize either. And anything can happen in a single limb. Case in point, last year, you had Brother Rice out early. You had Orchard Lake St. Mary's out early. You had Northville out early. So many of the top teams. Again, it just shows you how difficult of a proposition it is to try and make the Final Four, let alone win a state title.
No, I think when it comes to Cam playing in the postseason, probably the moment that I remember the most was we were hosting regionals at Grosse Pointe South, I believe against Sterling Heights Stevenson, who was a very good team and had a Division I pitcher on the mound. And Cam really showed both sides of his game for the Scouts that day, having both a bunt for a hit and a home run.
Yeah. And again, Cam, he shined in those type of situations. There's no doubt he shined. He wanted to be the guy, and he was the guy.
certainly his 1 year younger, but his teammate Carmen Benedetti, part of those teams as well. Jack Doyle, who was very strong on the mound during that
Jack
time.
did a tremendous job for us on the mound, tremendous job. And it's very unusual. You talk about, when we had Carmen and Cam, those were 2 preseason All-Americans in collegiate baseball. They were both preseason All-Americans. And again, it shows you how tough it was to get to the Final Four. We didn't make it with either of those guys on the team. And it obviously goes to show you how important the pitching aspect of it is too, and how, again, you can get beat on any given day by a very good pitcher in Division I especially. With those 2 players, you would think, as said, preseason All-Americans and future pro players, we never made it to the Final Four.
And I think you could certainly make the argument that the year after Carmen's graduation, 2014, was not on paper as good of a team.
No.
And got to the state final.
We got to the state final and we were 27-18. We lost 18 ball games that year. Played some great competition, certainly, because of that. We play a lot of kids. But we caught fire. John Hackett, he's the best pitching coach in the state in high school. He told me, he said, I think we need to start Jimmy Menchel. We need to start him. He was a reliever, shortstop, played great at short. I said, well, I agree. I think maybe we need something. We need some kind of spark. As much as I hate to take him out of shortstop, we started him, and again, he just caught fire, had the confidence, won a district, won a regional, won a quarterfinal, and got us to the final game at East Lansing.
And it took Bay City Western, who to this day is the only back-to-back champion ever
Exactly.
in Division I.
Yeah.
To knock us off. But and then the year after that, right back to the Final Four with another good veteran team.
Right. Brian Leager and company. Yeah. Another good team.
Andrew Fabry.
Andrew Fabry had a great year. That was a real interesting situation. We've always had North in our district. Well, the state that year put us in separate districts, which, we were hoping we would not have to battle each other all the time, to get to advance in the tournament.
No such luck.
No such luck. We won the district. They won their district, won their regional, and guess who we see in the quarterfinal? Grosse Pointe North. And Fabry had a great game there and beat them in the quarterfinal and sent us to East Lansing again.
And I'm sure when one of those younger guys gets in the Hall of Fame, we'll talk about that one in more depth. But real briefly, I mean, that's about as high of a stakes game as you can play in, is a crosstown rival game in a quarterfinal.
Exactly. Especially when they had players like Danny Robinson,
right,
who was in the Tiger organization.
No doubt. I think Cam Gibson, obviously very special athlete from a very special family, and accomplished a lot in his career. Someone that we all enjoyed watching on the baseball field, and someone that we'll certainly enjoy seeing again at our event on January 25th. Sold out. Many thanks to our sponsors such as Burke Sport Haven and the Grosse Pointe News, and we look forward to seeing everybody there.
We're going to have a great evening. See you there.
Take care.